Hello, and welcome to another Scoutcast from Fantasy Football Scout. As always, you are joined by me, Andy, FPL Mode, and we are also joined by, I'm not going to give them any adjectives this week because they didn't take to them kindly, so we are joined by Joe and Seb. Joe, how's it going?
It's going excellently, especially buoyed this week by having a green arrow. But it's so sad. It's so sad that I'm the only one, isn't it?
Oh, the only one, even though you didn't beat either of us in your weekly score.
Doesn't matter. It's just the colour of the arrow. That's all that matters.
Deary me. Seb, how's your week been going? Because I've had enough from Joe already.
Well, I got a red arrow, so I guess terribly, right? Not the absolute disaster. It's all right. I think clinging on wherever I am, 120 something, is fine at this stage. It doesn't really matter. I was looking at is it Live FPL that tells you like how far you are from certain ranks, and I was something like a 1 point from 100k and 18 points from like a million. It's like great. It all means nothing. One
Exactly.
captain and you'll jump a million places.
Yeah. Hello to everybody in the chat. Hello to everybody that's listening on the podcast as well. We've been getting some brilliant views recently, so please keep it up. Please keep telling people about the Scoutcast. Please keep liking and subscribing as well. Obviously, you don't need to do that at the start, but if you start liking it a bit later on, definitely do it then as well. Joe, what's going on in the show tonight?
Rightio, we'll be talking about my green arrow in our game week 3 roundups. Andy, you are going to be talking about the most attacking teams and the best defences. I'll be having a look at the best forwards because a lot of people are talking about time for a 3-man attack, and there's lots and lots of forwards to consider, especially with the defenders not delivering in 1 week. So everyone's getting itchy fingers already. Seb is deep diving into Leeds. Are they good? Or Chelsea just bad? There's the community team as well we'll be looking at. Team reveals. I'll be considering possibly replacing Mason Mount, but I might keep him, give him another go and see how far his price can drop while I own him. Teacher Andy's got a Q&A, and apparently it's slightly different this time. So that will be interesting. And just before we move on, I've just got a few words about the incredibly kind comments that we've been getting in our mailbag. So we get a mailbag here. It's quite old-fashioned, and so this was a great one here. I won't name him. It's because it's too kind, really. Starting, he says the current lineup of the Scoutcast is almost as good as when Mark and Let's Talk FPL Andy were on. So that's really good, really lovely, good for the praise there. Sav has
almost. Don't like that comment.
No, it's good. It's good. Almost. It's pretty good. And,
come on, boys, buck it up.
And what did you just say? Buck up our ideas.
Up. Yeah,
great stuff. Sav has said the consensus. He sussed us out. Consensus seems to be do the opposite to what Joe says. We've been uncovered, so that's advice I certainly will be following and totally ignoring what he says. And FPL Face-Off Tom, and that's Tom Glover, who appears on this week's Meet the Manager. Do have a look at that. It's on the Fantasy Football Scout channel on YouTube and a podcast, wherever you look at podcasts. He says, great podcast, who's listening to it. Great podcast, guys. Excellent to finally hear an FPL pod address the Crewkern one-way system. Long overdue. So really happy about that we've uncovered the big FPL issues there. And it's been well spotted there by a fellow West Country dweller, Tom, there. So, really happy with that mailbag. Looking forward to reading out some of your other brilliant comments about the show.
Most of what was commented on from last week was your Viking rant you went on, which I blacked out of. I don't even remember that happening.
And I did as well. Yeah. Well,
but there you go.
I'm looking forward. At some point later in the season, I don't know when, but I'll do a King Stephen and Plantagenets rant as well. But I don't know when that's going to be.
So you can do it in April if you like. That's absolutely fine by me.
Okay, yeah, absolutely could be. At least a treat for people.
Do it late November, early December.
Yes.
Why?
You'll get there eventually.
Oh, I think he knows a bit more about King Stephen and the anarchy of 12th century England more than we do there.
Right, we're starting again. Right, let's go straight on to the points. Here we go. So, my points this week, and I think I was top scorer this week. Hello. No, I've got the wrong score up there. It's actually 52 points I had, not 51. So, 52 points for me this week. My My backline, apart from one person I'm going to get onto in a minute, was absolutely abysmal, as was most people's this week. So I had Ward in goal, got me 1 point. Lovely stuff. Trent and Cancelo both got me 0 points between them. James got me 1 point. Robertson got me 1 point. But Saliba got me 14 points. Lovely stuff. Do you know what? I bought him in knowing that he had it in his locker. Left-footed curlers from outside the box. Just absolutely gorgeous. Salah was my captain, 16 points. Martinelli with 6. Kulusevski with 3. Haaland with 6. And Jesus with 4 as my vice-captain. I did have Pereira on my bench with 8, but he was second on my bench and, he wasn't coming on anyway. So 52 points, down arrow to 455k, but literally I think it was 10k drop. So I'll take that, to be perfectly honest, because looking at the point totals, I'm roughly where I want to be based on looking at all my leagues and things. So 52 points this week. Obviously, it was bringing in Saliba and De Silva last week, and Saliba, I was hoping for a clean sheet. I wasn't expecting a goal and a clean sheet, but there we go. I wanted to drink tequila all Saturday night. I don't know why, but I do love that new song that was in my head for the rest of the weekend. Seb, moving on to you. You do actually have 51 points. Talk us through your team.
Sure. I have Sanchez in goal with 8 points, and that's basically it. Trent, Cancelo, Walker, James, and Gabriel, not Saliba. When he scored that, I definitely thought it was Gabriel because it was left-footed. And what has Saliba got? 2 goals in about 1,000 games now. So, all right, Andy, saw that coming, yeah? Predicted that.
Exactly.
You need to share your model with me. I need some of that. I did captain Salah, fortunately, although for most of that game, I thought that was going to end badly. Luis Diaz did nothing. Martinelli with 6. Haaland with 6. And Jesus with 4. I also benched Andreas, and I benched the person I brought in De Silva, but that was always the plan. That was just a move to bank some money.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I hate seeing Sanchez in both your teams and Ward in mine at the moment, but we'll get onto that a bit later. There was none for me. Was there any chance you were going to play Pereira?
No. If you look at the rest of my team, I don't know who I would have dropped. I probably would have ended up dropping Gabriel or something, the one player who got me some points. So
yeah. No, exactly. Lovely stuff. And Joe, moving on to your points, 51 points. So 51 points for Joe as well. Talk us through your team.
Green arrow and a correct score. This is a momentous moment in the Scoutcast. My team is almost identical to Seb's. A couple of differences, but same points. Sanchez in goal, my hero. Cancelo, nothing. Gabriel got customary 7 points. Alexander-Arnold, nothing. James and Cucurella, my new recruits in. So I swapped them for Robertson and also Patterson. So I wanted to upgrade Patterson, give myself a bit more flexibility with a 5-man backline if I wanted. And I went for those 2. They rewarded me with 1 point. So Robertson was the sort of the risky move there. But on reflection, I'm glad I've done that now. The other option was Perisic. It was either going to be Perisic and Cucurella. Obviously, I didn't go for the guy that got 12 points. It's what you do, not what you don't do. And I didn't do that because I was scared off by his X minutes. And I think what's Gabriel got? Seb might know because he owns him as well. Gabriel's obviously got more points than Perisic at the moment because he's played more games.
Overall, I'm not sure. He got 6, 7 or something like that.
So he's broad. I think he's got more points than Perisic at the moment. He's cheaper. So I prefer the player that plays more. Perisic, I think, will get 2 more starts in the next 3. So that'll be good. But if Gabriel picks up 3 clean sheets and plays 3 times, then that move's good as well. So I'm still not going to get Perisic in. Considering it, but not really at the moment. I know I've got Mason Mount in midfield. Salah captain, thank you very much. What a reliable pick he has been. I was doing the captaincy video earlier today. We call that reliable Salah against the rest. And someone was saying, is it too early to say whether Salah's reliable? Well, I don't know if he's been watching the Premier League for the last number of years, but he's been doing this every week. He's absolutely brilliant and reliable. So yeah, he is. Martinelli, 6 points. Haaland, 6 points. Jesus, 4. Jesus, absolute. I'm not going to say a rude word, but he was the biggest threat to my rank. He's so highly owned. It always happens that you get a small bit of the rank. If their effective ownership is above 100%, they're going to hurt you a little bit. But this guy was the biggest threat. I looked on live FPL. and he was 40% owned effectively. Effectively, he was a 40% owned player against me. And that was the highest out of anyone else playing who had a decent size, decent size threat to me that week. So my biggest threat I actually own, which is ridiculous. And I'm not sure we'll ever see his like again, because it's a perfect storm, really.
It does help in a way, though, that Salah was only 110% EO, which meant that if you captained him, you actually got 90% of his points, which is, whatever it is, of his points, which is actually really nice. Because, and what you were just saying about reliable Salah, Liverpool played they didn't play very well against Manchester United, to be perfectly honest, and he still popped up with a goal, which is exactly what you want from your perfect captain.
So I went from something like nearly 3 million to a green arrow, but more than I had before, like 1.3 million. All mainly because of Salah. Andreas on my bench and Bailey. So it's an expensive bench. Ward customarily there and Archer. But no, I'm not going to pretend I ever would have played them. If I'd have done nothing, I would have still played Patterson. Believe it or not, I would have gambled on an Everton clean sheet. So I'm not going to say that Andreas Pereira or Bailey were ever in consideration, but I'm happy to own them on my bench.
Based on obviously the title of our stream tonight as well, Mount has been there in your midfield every week so far.
Yeah,
he just hasn't returned. He's starting to look a bit like an eyesore, isn't he? Like, obviously, don't give away everything from what you're going to say a bit later on, but he must be under serious consideration to lead your team this week.
If I'm going to make a move this week, if there's no injuries or nothing, we hear of mass rotation or something, we get some inkling. If I made a move, it would be Mason Mount to obviously another midfielder, probably a Brighton midfielder but anyway, I'll reveal that a bit later. But if I was to make that move, but I'm tempted just to leave him because Brighton against Leeds I don't think it's going to be high scoring. And well, anyone, my cat against Ward at the moment could be goals. So I might keep Mason Mount. He might get another go.
It's just, I feel like you would be in the top million if you'd have picked any other 8 million mid. That's all I'm thinking.
I feel you'd be in the top 10k, getting that first ever top 10k finish.
If it weren't for Ward.
If you had a proper goalkeeper.
I know. He'll be going in 2 weeks, don't you worry. Right, here we go then. So we're going to move on to the first section, which is my section actually, which is talking about the most attacking teams. So when we were kind of talking about what we wanted our sections to be this week, I thought it would be good just to have a bit of a deep dive into the teams and actually look to see which teams are actually putting up the most XG, which teams are scoring the most goals, and which teams are very poor defensively and which ones have the best defences. Because after 3 games, most teams have played a tough team, an easy team. It's kind of getting a little bit more like a kind of pattern in their play now. So on the screen at the moment, I've got the most attacking teams, and this is ordered by their XG, and you can see their goals as well. So you can see whether they're kind of overperforming their XG, or whether they're just in line with it, or whether they're maybe a little bit below it. Manchester City are clear at the top. They've scored joint top goals with Arsenal, actually, with 9 goals, but 6.09 is their XG. I mean, I don't think anybody would be massively surprised that Man City are at the top there. The big thing with Man City has always been which assets do we actually invest in, because they usually get rotated and it's tough to call. But it is an interesting one there in terms of obviously 9 goals, and KDB has been very involved, and should he maybe be our premium asset that we're looking at. But Fulham are second, which really surprised me. They're actually underperforming a little bit. 5.29 is their expected goals, but they've scored 5 goals. But I think considering they played Liverpool in the first game, I think they're doing quite well in an attacking sense. Obviously, they drew the second game, but 5 goals, I think, in 3 games is quite good for a newly promoted side. Arsenal are third, so pretty much everybody's got triple Arsenal at the moment. They are delivering where we want them to, maybe overperforming a little bit. 9 goals, 5.27 for XG. Leeds are next. So we've got some really interesting teams up the top here. Leeds are next. I don't think many would have said that. Players like Rodrigo, Aronson, Harrison, all doing very well. I know Seb is going to talk about Leeds in a little bit more detail a little bit later on. Then there's Crystal Palace, then Brighton, and then Liverpool. And then towards the bottom, Bournemouth are towards the bottom. They've scored 2 goals and they've only got 1.00 as their XG. Leicester are towards the bottom, so are Southampton, Forest, Wolves. So we can see a real pattern emerging here in terms of who's maybe had a good start. Obviously, fixtures kind of, go into this as well. If they had easier fixtures, Arsenal in particular have had quite nice fixtures. But Seb, if we start with you, what's kind of standing out for you here? Because Arsenal, like I've already said, we all know they've had nice fixtures. They're playing well. This is telling us that's exactly what we're looking at. But is there anything here that kind of surprised you or kind of stood out to you?
I mean, obviously, there's always the caveat that, 3 games, although, like you say, if someone's played well for 3 games in a row, that is informative, even if it's not conclusive. I think Fulham have had 2 penalties, which is worth, missed one of them, of course, which is worth bearing in mind their numbers. But seeing as you mentioned them, I might go to the other end of the table and look at Leicester, who are second bottom. We know they've signed no one over the summer, and we know they've, maybe tailed off under Rodgers a little bit, but that poor for attacking threat is a surprise, even with fixtures. Your Vardy, your Maddison, Barnes, a decent attacking team. And I think this links to a player who's popular as well in FPL, which is Maddison. His goal at the weekend was that near post free kick. Brilliant free kick. In football, amazing. In FPL, real hard to look at that and think, okay, that's a goal I can trust him to recreate and therefore use it as evidence for my FPL side. So I'm very happy to steer clear of Leicester personally.
Yeah, I think you hit it was Maddison that I was kind of alluding to there as well, where he does seem to be scoring goals that are low in XG. And obviously they've scored 5 goals, but their XG is very low at 1.37. So you think they're probably overperforming a little bit at the moment. I say overperforming with goals anyway, not with their performances. But Joe, what about you? Like, there's some there that I'm really. West Ham 0 goals, but they are putting up an okay XG.
Yeah.
Liverpool, who would have thought Liverpool were, what are they, 7th in the table for XG so far?
Yeah, I mean, what this is quite interesting because we in the captaincy video we use this sort of table, the attacking teams and the defensive teams, which I know we're going to show in a bit. And they're quite useful as the season goes on to assess, the defenses to target, but also the attacks that are doing well. And yeah, as you said, Manchester City, no surprise, they're pretty much always top. But it's those other teams that are interesting. What's interesting about Fulham, they've scored 5 goals, but their expected goals is about that as well. So they're neither over or underperforming. They're doing as they should. And the other good thing about Fulham is that the bulk of the goals is through their talisman, Mitrovic. So if you want to, when Fulham's fixtures improve, but you could probably just invest now. And we'll talk about forwards in a bit, but Mitrovic is someone you can invest in, I think, because even in tough matches, he's going to get a goal. And if Fulham are going to score, it's going to be through him. And they're just looking they're looking like a Premier League outfit now, as opposed to so frequently a yo-yo club who sort of looked a bit, out of their depth. But they look fully okay now. They can. I wouldn't say they can beat anyone, but they can certainly draw and they can certainly score against anyone. I've highlighted, when I did this table, I highlighted Arsenal as well. Everyone is going mad on Arsenal. Obviously, they've scored 9 goals, but their expected goals is much lower than that. So they are not. They're not going to score 3 goals a game. I would be very surprised that they're going to. That's going to happen for 38 game weeks. So I'm expecting some regression there, a few 1-0s, 2-0s, maybe 2-1s or 1-alls, that kind of thing, rather than this kind of hammering every team. But nevertheless, yeah, great team to invest in. But it's Leeds and Brighton I'm interested in because in fixture terms, they're really good. They've got when we look at the fixture ticker over the next 4 or 5. So Brighton have got Leeds, obviously Leeds got Brighton, and then Brighton have Fulham, Leicester, and Bournemouth. All teams who are either newly promoted. In Fulham's case, I think that's good, but nevertheless, Leicester and Bournemouth, great fixtures. Leeds, Brighton, historically over the last few games have beaten Leeds. The Leeds against Brighton, that they could get something out of that. Then they play Everton, then they got Brentford, and then they've got Nottingham Forest. So these are great fixtures, and they're scoring goals and they're keeping clean sheets, which is why they're a sort of team that at the moment, because they're playing each other and they're both in good form defensively and in attack. I know Seb's going to talk about Leeds a lot towards the end of the show, but I think they're good for investment after they play each other. So that's why I've highlighted them. That if you want to get a cheap attacker, a Trossard, Pascal Gross, McAllister is on penalties. And with Leeds as well, you've got obviously Rodrigo is hoovering up the goals, but there's definitely goals in these teams, but they're sort of unfashionable teams. I remember I think I said on the show last week when I was at Fest, people were consoling me because Basuma and Cucurella were leaving, as if Brighton well, that's it, they're going to die, they will not survive, but they've said it so many times, system-based team. Doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a lot easier to trust in those system-based teams, isn't it?
So they're the teams I wanted to highlight there, because they've got the fixtures and they've got the form, but they're still slightly unfashionable.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, like, because obviously Joe's just touched there on Leeds and Brighton, which I think is brilliant. And I love the fact that you brought up the fact they're playing each other this week, because a lot of people have been talking to me about, I want to get Rodrigo in, and I feel like you can wait a week. Don't get me wrong, price change is obviously tough because he is going up like mad at the moment, but I feel like this is going to be a tough fixture. But Seb, you're looking at Liverpool there, 7th in the table. They've scored 4 goals, 4.65. You're really wanting Liverpool to be up there with City, aren't you? You're wanting them to be 2nd and 3rd on here. And they're obviously not at the moment. Do you see that changing anytime soon? Because that midfield is not giving anything to Salah and Diaz, are they? Like, it's really not working at the moment.
Yeah, we were saying beforehand, midfield has been their problem forever. And whenever they try and fix it, something else seems to come along, whether it be signing Thiago, who's brilliant but injury prone. I'm very happy to be patient with Liverpool, both in defence and attack. Got Salah, got Trent, got Diaz. The one I would lose soon-ish is probably Diaz, just for minutes rather than because of the team. I guess there's a few ways of looking at it. You either go, oh, Liverpool are in trouble, they're end of a cycle, they've sold Mane, their midfield's looking good, Van Dijk's off it, they're missing their other centre-back in Matip, so they're terrible, it's all over. Or this is the worst they're going to be all season, and they're still 7th on this list. And yeah, Man United were brilliant, Liverpool were poor last night, but, let's not go too far in either direction. Man United have been poor for 2 games. Liverpool have probably been unfortunate rather than overall bad in the other 2 games. So at least from an FPL perspective, I am very happy not to take 3 games too heavily when we have a few seasons worth of data for, say, Trent and Salah. Ask me again, in 5 weeks when I'm ranked 1 million and see how that goes.
I think
it's interesting. You said Trent and Salah there, but like you said, it's Diaz, Robertson, it's players like that it's that third asset that people are thinking of selling, isn't it? So Trent and Salah, I completely understand. Salah, it was a tough game last night. He still popped up with a goal as people's captain, but that Diaz, that Robertson, are we starting to waver a bit? And is it right to be wavering?
So for me personally, it's just the minutes thing. So I guess if you're less confident in Liverpool than I am, and you're also aware that minutes could be an issue shortly, fair enough. For me, it is just minutes with Jota back eventually when Darwin is back in 2 games from his ban, I think it is. Diaz's minutes are obviously limited, and he's my player I have there. So either I move to Robertson or I move some money around, just to another 8 million. If someone obviously had Nunez or wants to get Nunez back, cool, but I maybe want to see that his place is secure. If I had Trent Robertson, Salah, I think I'd be content enough. Unless I was desperate for the cash, I'd be content holding Robbo. Yeah, he's been subbed off, but Tsimikas has been poor when he's come on. When fixtures come along, Tsimikas probably is going to start, maybe 1 in there, but I think he's a lot safer than your Diaz's and even your Nunez's.
Yeah.
I think I just wanted to add something, because it's sort of linked in with Rodrigo, but it's any player really. It's about people making moves based on price, not points. And yes, sometimes those two can go hand in hand. If a player's price is going up, surely that means they've been scoring points. But does that mean they will continue scoring points? So Rodrigo got, I can't remember, it was well over 2,000 minutes last season, scored 6 goals, I think, 4 assists, which is okay. But it's not, but people are going, I've got to get him in because his price is going up. Not I've got to get him in because he's a seasoned performer that's going to bring in the points again, even and get him in for a notoriously tough match for Leeds as well. I don't just say that's a Brighton fan. Sab will testify. Those games are not high scoring, Brighton against Leeds. We're not well known for it. And so I just would caution that as well. And also, if you get a player like Rodrigo in and it goes up a couple of times in price, well, then what do you do? And when he doesn't start scoring and his price starts to go down, you obviously try and sell to pocket that money. And then what do you do with that 0.1? And it seems that you're making all of those moves and those transfers just for money rather than points. I think it's fair enough if you think Rodrigo is going to be, oh my God, the absolute sensation of the season and is going to score 25, 30 goals, which he may well do, in which case do that. Yeah, hopefully for Leeds fans. But I just think if you think that, then fine. But if you're just doing it because his price is going up, then you have to question that decision.
I think there might be some that are doing it just for that. But if you look, I know they've got Brighton next, but after that, their fixtures are lovely for quite a while.
Well, then why get him in now then? Because his price is going up.
or because they're wanting to move down from an 8 mil or something like that. I personally, I actually see
there's a massive gap between him. That's like moving down from the American army to the Gibraltar army. That's just a massive gap.
A lot of people are trying to get to that kind of space up front, aren't they? They're trying to get to a Tony up front, so they're moving down an 8 mil mid and maybe trying to get up to Tony or Mitrovic or something like that, I guess. But yes, I suppose Brighton have started well. But Leeds are putting up the XG. They're scoring the goals. Rodrigo is captain when Bamford's not there. He's putting up the XG. He's scoring goals. He's on penalties when Bamford's not there as well. And is it Click is the other one that's on pens if he's on the pitch?
Yeah, but he'd be behind those two.
Well, if they're that into penalties and fixtures, then just get McAllister in. He's much cheaper, and he's on penalties. And
that's the only way McAllister scored this year, though, isn't it? Is it McAllister's only scored from a pen so far and an own goal against United?
McAllister is Messi, basically, in Brighton form.
I don't mind the Rodrigo pick. Seb, just very quickly, Dave the Dave man has put a super question in the chat. Do you mind just taking a note of it so we can answer it towards the end? Is that cool?
No problem.
Thank you very much. So Dave the Dave man, we are going to answer it, but we'll answer it towards the end. Joe, just very quickly then, we'll do a little bit more chat about Rodrigo when Seb does his section a little bit later on. But the other player as well.
I don't mean to single him out totally. It's any player that you'll get that people are getting in because their price is going up or down.
Yeah,
rather than
that's fine.
Because they're going to get points.
That's fine. Yeah. The last one I want to talk about, fifth in this, so fifth in terms of XGI, is Crystal Palace, 4.94, almost 5. Zaha. Started the season incredibly well again. I love Zaha because against the big teams, he's the counter-attacking threat who's so effective. And obviously he's on pens. This week, he scored 2 goals, missed a pen, got a yellow card, got 3 bonus points. And this is what he can do. Like
it's because he is
well in my thoughts.
It's because of the fixtures. People aren't thinking about him.
Yeah.
But even if the fixtures were good, people still wouldn't think about him. He's just one of those players people just don't get.
Yeah.
It's last season we frequently did a unfashionable picks table, and I'll certainly look to do that once we've got a bit more data. But Zaha would definitely be there because no one ever gets Zaha in, and he always scores. And especially in those types of games where Palace are set up to try. I say this every time about as a Brighton fan. Brighton against Palace, Zaha will score from their one shot, and it'll be massively depressing. That's what he does.
I think that's the thing with Zaha, though. You've nailed it there, where it's in those matches against City or whatever that he feels most effective. Which from an FPL perspective is not when I want my 7 million midfielder to be most effective, because that's when I'm not playing him.
He's like Adama Traore. He's like he used to be. I used to always bench Adama Traore in the tough games, like against City, and he'd score a brace against City or whatever it is. But
we need to flip our FPL minds, and we need to look. Crystal Palace fixtures absolutely pants. They're bottom of the table. Get Zaha in. They're playing Brentford and Fulham. I think I'll avoid.
There might be a bit of recency and/or confirmation bias in there as well. Like I'd be interested to see how true.
Honestly,
that really is.
That's what he's like. He's an absolute. He's a so and so of a striker, Zaha.
For me, I still can't get my head around the fact that they're managed by Vieira. I still think of him as Roy Hodgson. So I look at Crystal Palace and think, well, they're not going to have shots. They're not going to do stuff. But you look at here, they're 5th on the fixture ticket. This is after playing Liverpool and Arsenal as well. So.
It's an illusion. It's like Darren Brown. You've been hypnotised. This is what they do to make, they're so unfashionable. They're run by this octogenarian. And yet they're not. They're run by an absolute legend. They're massively attacking. And Zaha's scoring every week.
Joe, I didn't think you'd be calling an octogenarian a legend, but I suppose, anyway.
I'm saying their previous manager was an octogenarian.
Yeah. Let's move on to the best defensive teams now. So this is my next bit. So we've done most attacking teams. Now this is the most defensive team. So these are the teams that are giving up hardly any XG. And hopefully what you're seeing as well is they're hardly giving up any XG, and they're also keeping clean sheets, because sometimes teams are very unlucky. They're hardly giving up any, but they still concede goals, unfortunately. Arsenal are top of this. Obviously, again, they've had probably the easiest run out of everybody so far, so you're not that shocked by that. But even then, they're conceding less than one XG a game so far this season, which is pretty good. Then we've got Man City, we've got Brighton next, Spurs next as well, all under 3xG for their first 3 games. And then towards the very bottom, we've got Nottingham Forest, who are almost at 6xG conceded so far after 3 games, and West Ham as well. West Ham are a big shock for me. They've really struggled at the beginning of this season. I know their fixtures haven't been very kind, but they've really seemed to have struggled recently. But yeah, so if I just run down the table a little bit more. So it's Arsenal, Man City, Brighton, Spurs are the top 4. They're the only 4 teams that are under 3xG so far this season. Then Bournemouth, which is really quite surprising, although we have said Parker's a defensive manager, so maybe that explains it a little bit. But they have played Man City there, so it's not too bad being 5th. Southampton, Newcastle, Chelsea, Fulham. And then, as I said, we've got Nottingham Forest, West Ham, Everton, Aston Villa, and Leicester all at the bottom. I would have thought Leicester would be at the bottom. I'm not going to lie, because of the way we've been talking about Ward. But Seb, talk us through this table in terms of what kind of pops out for you in this table as well.
Same caveat as before, of course. I wonder if this one is more dictated by fixtures sometimes.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of, probably for want of a better word, chaos in here. Arsenal, Man City near the top, Tottenham, fair enough. The rest, Forest down there, the rest seems somewhat random. And while teams like Chelsea and Liverpool, even Manchester United, may well have fallen off, you would expect them to climb this table over time. So what I'd want to do with something like this is look at fixtures that have gone and fixtures that are to come and combine it. So West Ham are an interesting one to keep an eye on. Nottingham Forest, maybe some nice confirmation there that we can target them. And then on the flip side, Bournemouth, as you said yourself, I'm still very happy to captain players against them. I think I will be this week, because last time I didn't captain Salah against Bournemouth, it went badly. But one to keep an eye on, maybe more when, we're looking to have, say, your Mitrovic is in when there's European football. If he plays at Bournemouth, maybe it's less likely to result in a hat-trick than we might previously have thought.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, Joe? Because, I'm looking at this and genuinely, West Ham were quite a surprise for me, because don't get me wrong, I wasn't picking any of their players before the season started because their fixtures weren't very nice. But last year they tended to do okay. And I feel like they've dropped off a bit of a cliff recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to sound a bit callous. I just don't care about West Ham
at the moment.
No, they're not on my radar at the moment, and they've, as you said, they've had tough fixtures, so it's not surprising that they've conceded lots of goals. And they were expected to concede lots of goals because, in a way, they did overperform. Some of their players did really well, but we've seen that before. So Jared Bowen was priced at 8.5, and immediately the first name I immediately thought of was Stephen Ireland at Manchester City that season, where he did exceptionally well. Next price really high. Next season, absolutely terrible. And so that was my immediate thought there. So I'm not too well. I mean, when West Ham's fixtures improve, then I'll be more interested in them, because they could be one of those sides that they're not fixture proof. They can't beat anyone. They need those good fixtures. The other thing I find interesting in these best defenses is we've only got obviously 3 sets of data. Home and away is really important for teams, certain teams. We've seen it time and again with, say, Everton. I think we might see it with Nottingham Forest, not Notts County, as was previously said, Nottingham Forest. And we could start seeing that as well. I don't know. We might not. We might see the reverse. Brighton have historically been quite good away. We're seeing them beating teams away from home. But that is because I don't know whether that's because Brighton were homeless for ages, and it's just in their DNA of the last 10, 20 years before the Amex and with Dean, that they were they're used to playing away. Every game felt like an away side. So Arsenal, I'm pleased to have an Arsenal defender. If you don't have an Arsenal defender, get one. If you don't have a Brighton defender, get one, I would say. I think Sanchez is a great replacement for Ward. But I will also say that Veltman is playing, and I think he's 4 million, 4.1 now. If you're looking for an bargain enabler, get him in. I think there's a lot of value there. I'll be interested to see some of these teams know at the bottom whether they're there home and away, because we know what Everton have been like at home, and we know what they've been like away historically.
So Joe, if you were
I just wanted to make one more point before I forget. Tony D in the live chat is saying, by coincidence, he's seen Darren Brown in a few days, and if it's a show that I saw fairly recently, he'll love it. And I'm not going to reveal anything else about it apart from that it's really good.
Good. So Joe, just very quickly then, there are some people out there, from what I've heard, that are on the Ward Everson double up. Now, if they wanted to upgrade their keeper, based on this best defences list, based on the fixtures that are coming up, is it as simple as Sanchez is just the best keeper to get?
No.
Nice. I'm glad you said no.
No, but I think there's a hell of a lot of good goalkeepers you can get. It all depends what you want to spend. So obviously you're upgrading a 4 million goalkeeper. So you could upgrade to a 5 million one. So if you do not already have Ramsdale, a good option because of those clean sheets. I think Pope is an excellent option as well. I think Newcastle are being missed. People were surprised that they performed so well against Manchester City. Well, I think we're going to start seeing that much more. People need to alter how they think about them. But I have a handy table that was too complicated to show on the screen. It would just blow people's minds. But it's basically expected goals prevented, which is the table of whether the goalkeepers are any good, whether they're actually preventing goals and whether they're actively not preventing goals. Statistically, the worst goalkeeper, the one who has actually cost his team 3.3 goals, is Bazunu at Southampton. And the second worst, you'll be pleased to know, is Danny Ward. So he's not the worst, but he's expected to have prevented getting on for 3 goals, 2.8 goals. So he's statistically the second worst. Travers at Bournemouth, he's cost his side nearly 2 goals. De Gea, he's cost his side nearly a goal. No, more than the goal. And then Guita and Ramsdale, Raya, surprisingly, and Lloris are the others with a minus tally in that they cost their side goals. They've only had 3 fixtures, though, so take these with a pinch of salt. Meanwhile, the statistically best goalkeepers is Dean Henderson. So Nottingham Forest are conceding a lot. They're conceding a lot of shots, but he has actively saved nearly 3. Like, he has prevented 3 goals being scored at least there by his amazingness. Pope, 2 goals. He is actively by his sheer excellence. And then you've got Fabianski. So when West Ham's fixtures improve, you could start seeing Fabianski do well. And Meslier as well, another strong option. And then you've got this also rounds, which includes Sanchez and Pickford, who are actively being excellent goalkeepers, of which Sarr is as well. He's in plus. So there's a hell of a lot. I've probably mentioned all goalkeepers there. But nevertheless, the takeaway you should get from that is if you're in the 4.5 market, Henderson, Meslier, Sanchez, I think would be the best ones. And I think, short term, we've already said Brighton and Leeds fixtures are great. So I would go for one of those 2.
Yeah, and you're probably only picking up until game week 8 or 9, aren't you, with a wild card? So fixtures are the one. The one thing with XG prevented there is it is quite volatile.
Yeah,
so do take it with a little pinch of salt, especially someone who saved a penalty, because that will count for a large chunk.
My favourite time for this table is around about using the sort of post Christmas, when you're either going to use a wild card or if you're going to use it early, but also you just want to mix it up a bit and maybe both your goalkeepers are injured or something like that. It's the time when you're going to get a goalkeeper. And traditionally, what I've done, if I was wildcarding, is to try and get the 2 best 4.5 goalkeepers. So traditionally, I think the Bournemouth and the Southampton one, I can't remember which one at the time, McCarthy, and it could have even been Travers, were the best, as in getting those save points, getting those bonus points, even if they didn't keep a clean sheet. And they're the sort of ones you want in. And what have we seen with Sanchez? He's been getting bonus points as well recently, as well as save points. Which is exactly what you want from your 4.5.
What do you think about a premium goalkeeper such as Edison to try and solve the City defensive rotation problem? Is that something that interests you?
No, no, it doesn't, because I still feel I might get another. So I've got Haaland and Cancelo, and I still think Cancelo offers more. And as indeed, he got 11 points the week before, didn't do well this week, but he's still capable of those double-digit returns. So I think his ceiling is higher. But also, I sort of tentatively want to leave that third spot in case I want to get a Gundogan in, in case I want to get Foden in. I don't know, but I just feel there's players with much bigger upside than Edison, and also these 4.5 goalkeepers, they're doing really well, and they always have done in the game. Unfashionable, but
Right. Well, moving on to unfashionable, there was somebody in the media not too long ago that said quite an unfashionable quote about quite a fashionable striker. So, unfortunately, Pep Guardiola came out and he was talking about squad rotation, and he said that last season, and this is him talking about Haaland, by the way, last season he didn't play 90 minutes because he was injured. The physios and doctors did an incredible job since he arrived to avoid injuries. Now he has one game a week. I tell you now, when we have games every 3 days, that Erling will not play. I will play Julian Alvarez. When we start with games every 3 days, everyone is going to play. Now, obviously, FPL Twitter being, the non-reactionary place that it is, everybody went, oh my God, when am I going to sell Haaland? And in some respects, it's probably a little bit of overreaction because lots of teams are going to have, 3 games in a week. Most people are talking about getting Kane in. They're going to have 3 games in a week. So obviously that's a kind of interesting aspect to look at. But at the same respect, we have said this as the season, before the season even started, that Haaland is going to be that player that's going to have to be managed because he does have a bit of a spotty history record with his injuries, doesn't he? Now, on that respect, Joe, you've now got a list up on the stream looking at the best forwards in the game. Okay. Because some people might want to be moving Haaland to another striker. Is Kane that perfect striker, or are we starting to look at some of these lesser owned and kind of cheaper strikers that are maybe better options?
Yeah, I mean, I think this week this is particular issue. So we've had that sort of cast iron guarantee from Pep that Haaland is going to get rotated, and they have midweek fixtures right up until the World Cup. So it's going to be a hell of a lot of rotation, and that makes me a bit worried about Haaland. But it does also mean that we can pick and choose when we get him in. There's a lot of people saying, "Oh, I don't know what transfers to make." Well, perhaps swapping Haaland to Kane there's huge upside players that you can get the captaincy on, and for example, if Haaland is benched this weekend against Crystal Palace, then he plays Nottingham Forest next. So, hello, that looks like a good time to captain him. But also, I think forwards are really interesting at the moment. People have seen forwards do well, the likes of Mitrovic, Tony as well. Also, and at the same time, they've seen some of their defenders not do so well. So they're starting to think, oh, can I get 3 strikers instead of 2? I don't feel sorry for those that started the game with 1 striker, because that's your own fault, because it's not a very flexible formation. But they're looking at getting those 3 strikers at the moment. And so you can do 5-2-3, 4-3-3. I mean, there's really lovely bit of flexibility there. If you get Jesus, Kane or Haaland, and Tony or Mitrovic, there's lots of choice there. Or you can go down to Welbeck, who's doing well as well. So there's a lot of interest in forwards, and we've got more information so valuable. And that the quote you've just read out there, we had on the screen, is absolutely invaluable stuff about Haaland. And he's pretty much said, if he plays midweek, then he's not going to play the weekend, in which case, if Kane's got a great fixture, go for it. So yeah, these stats here, they show the best forwards. And how have I sorted this by? Not by FPL points. I think I did it by expected goal involvement per 90. Yeah. Mitrovic is good. I was told by Az when I was doing how do I do the per 90 bits? And he showed me the formula to do that. And he said basically anything over 0.5 is pretty good. It's really good. But anyway, Mitrovic is 1.14. Which means his expected goal of per 90 is more than a goal. He's expected to score more than a goal every match. So he's on for a 40-goal season if he carries this up. Obviously 14 shots inside the box, 8 shots on target. It's Haaland just behind him, 10 shots inside the box. He's also expected to be involved in over a goal a game. But now we know when he's going to play and when he's not, hopefully. That could help us a lot there. And then you've got Jesus. He's got 10 shots inside the box, but his expected goal involvement per 90 is 0.8. So that's also really good. Bearing in mind, 0.5 is the sort of benchmark of very goodness. Ollie Watkins doing well for Villa, but the fixtures aren't so good. And then you've got Kane at 0.63, also very good stats. Shots inside the box 8, shots on target 5. This is great stuff. Perisic corner, aiming for Kane. Kane scores. We're going to see that so many times. Perisic assist, Kane goal. A lot of people have got that double up there. If he started, so for me, if Haaland is, I've asked both of you about this because this is what I'm going to do, and you might poo-poo this, but if Haaland is starting against Crystal Palace this weekend, I will remove him for Harry Kane midweek, even though Haaland on paper has Nottingham Forest, who I don't think will play. But Seb, would you do that? It's this crazy harebrained move?
This is a big question. This is exactly what I was going to ask as well, so I'm glad you've asked it.
In that specific scenario, honestly, I don't know. But I fully expect to end up with like Tony, Mitrovic, Jesus, maybe again at some point. I think we spoke about it earlier as well. Just, hopefully it's not a reaction to that Haaland quote. It is something we've been monitoring for a while. And next week, we'll take a good look at those fixtures and those midweek fixtures. I think the thing that is going to shake up the template is the fact that a lot of these teams are going to play twice a week. The European teams will play twice a week in important matches as well. And someone like Haaland is going to get rotated, even maybe a Harry Kane. And I think that's when we look further down the table for our FPL picks. Yeah. So whether I do it for that match, I don't know, but I think I might.
Would you, Andy?
Do you know what? The big thing for me is about whether he's still going to play any minutes. Because if he doesn't play at all, I think you can kind of cover it. There is a potential for you to just play him in that midweek one because you never know he might play. But it's whether he plays any minutes at all or whether he plays 45 minutes or something stupid as well. So it's really tough because, like Seb's just said, they bought Richarlison in this year to give Kane actual rests. Like, they've never had that before. They've never had a striker that can play up top with him with any kind of pedigree that can kind of take Kane's minutes. So I think most people are thinking about doing Haaland to Kane in that week.
Yeah.
But even then, is Kane as secure as he's ever been? I mean, you probably guess he is. Like, probably get 250 minutes in those games, in those 3 games probably, because he's a machine. But it's really tough. I've been battling it in my head today and thinking, do I just keep him for those 3 games? Or is it worth... I feel like it's the big ball move to change him, isn't it? It's the big ball move to go, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to take the risk and I'm going to change him to another striker.
People did it in game week 2. Even people with little balls did it. In game week 2, they did the reverse. They said, oh, I've got Kane. Oh, he hasn't scored after a game. I'm going to get Haaland in. So why not just flip it on the head when we got all this? We got information where Pep has basically said he ain't playing.
To be fair, that was a planned move, wasn't it? I think the Kane to Haaland. I don't think people necessarily did that reactively.
And
right?
Haaland has a nice fixture in that midweek. That's the big thing. Like, if he does play and it's the weekend one he misses, yeah, we're going to be...
Now, on the flip side, if he gets benched against Crystal Palace, which I don't think will happen, but if he does, then Haaland against Nottingham Forest suddenly becomes a top captaincy option.
Are we keeping eyes on them playing Barca? Is it tomorrow?
It's tomorrow night,
Neil Cheeseman's just mentioned that in the chat as well. Cool. They've got this weird friendly where they're obliged to play star players as well. So they can't just put out some random team. Like, they've got to play good players. As soon as they finished their match at the weekend, they flew off the next day. They were gone. They were off to Barcelona to train and go in a training camp. Like, it's really weird. And I'd be keeping an eye out for that team as well. But like I said, beginning of the season, we talked about this so much about Haaland had to be managed. And like Joe said countless times already, we are literally being told he is going to be managed in this period coming up. But I don't think we've got a
it's not even an overreaction. He's literally said, I'm not playing him.
And that's what I mean. But I don't think he's given us enough information to know a definite solution. That's the difference. And we don't know which games he's going to be missing, which is the problem. But if you wanted to take that risk, I mean, Crystal Palace one's the big one because we're all going to have him in our team still. And if he plays in that one, you've got to assume he misses that Forest one.
I mean, for me, because I'm that type of manager, if I'm going to swap Haaland out, I'm going to do it for Kane. I'm going to do it for someone who reliably over a number of seasons has delivered. And he's playing West Ham, and which is, I think, a good fixture for him. And so, I don't have a problem with that. But the other option is something that Seb alluded to was to mix it up a bit. And this is why I think forwards are so interesting. You could think, well, I'm not Haaland. I don't know when he's going to play. Let's just get rid of him. Let's just tear him up, rip him out of my team, and then go for Jesus, Mitrovic, and Tony. Just go for the three of the form guys at the moment, or get Callum Wilson in instead. You can mix it up there and get 3 really good strikers still. And they're good prices, and there's lots of alternatives as well. So look, I mean, further down this list as well, Welbeck, 6.5 million. So you can go down as well from those. And I do like that. I just wanted to make another point. Ellen in the live chat was making the point where he advocates expected goal involvement non-penalty, and obviously we have used expected goal involvement per 90 here. Yes, very, very valid. Lots of people use that. I would advise using it all. Use as many data you can. This obviously is on the screen. If we did that and that other data as well, people's brains would hurt because they would have to get a magnifying glass to see everything, and it is quite tightly packed table as it is. But nevertheless, yes, it is good. But I also think, for me personally, why ignore penalties? I mean, these guys are on penalties. They win penalties. Why ignore that they do them? So
just from a predictability point of view, really.
Well, I mean, I think in the past as well, say Gerrard took penalties for Liverpool, get him in, even when his price was going down because he wasn't getting so active in the goals elsewhere. James Milner was then on penalties and he was really cheap. And he scored, was it 10, 11 penalties that season? Great asset to get in. So just don't ignore penalties. They're great.
I mean, Seb, is there something maybe going forward where if you're going to come off Haaland and you're also maybe going to not go with Kane because you're worried about the fact he's going to also be playing 3 games and you've got maybe 2 free transfers, you want to take a hit, is it worth that being the time, considering you're going to be wildcarding maybe in a couple of weeks anyway, that you can maybe go to KDB and you can maybe go to those 2 premiums in midfield instead of having that premium up top? Or does that leave you a bit kind of messed up if you want to get back to a premium striker?
So I know we flirted with the idea of Kane getting rotated. And as you said yourself, like he's probably more secure than most of these assets we're talking about, especially with Son not performing at the moment and Richarlison coming on for him rather than Kane. I think while De Bruyne has probably got better expected minutes than Haaland, he probably doesn't have better than Kane. So I'd probably still be going to Kane before I went to Haaland, especially seeing as it's just a simple swap, if that's what I was thinking about doing. Unless you were incredibly set on, getting some of that Man City attack, then okay, fair enough. The other thing, I guess, to keep in mind here is captaincy. So even if you were holding Haaland through all of this, because you just go, you know what, one every other game, if I think he's going to score 40 goals, I'll take, 20 goals if he plays half the season. That's fine with me. The thing that could really do you over is captaining him and him coming on for the final 20 minutes or whatever it is, and you missing out on, say, 90 minutes of Salah. So even if you own these players, I think captaincy is going to be a very big call. Haaland might play the next 2, and then, we've said if he plays one of these next 2, he won't play the next one. He could play both and then get rested the following match. It's that uncertainty that could really trip us up.
Oh,
bless you.
And the big thing I don't like is if you get rid of Haaland, that's it. You've got Cancelo left for most people, haven't you? And that's your only City kind of coverage. Yes, you're probably then going on to a Spurs player, which you maybe didn't have any coverage of before. But who is it the Spurs have got when he's got Notts Forest midweek? Who have Spurs got that midweek? I don't know who it is, actually.
West Ham?
Is it West Ham, is it? Well, at home?
I will quickly scroll up as fast as I can.
Because I'm just thinking, if it is West Ham at home, that's probably not too bad a fixture for them. That you could then maybe potentially captain Harry Kane.
Statistically, as we've just said, West Ham are the second worst defence currently.
I feel like there's some sort of London thing as well, isn't there? Always
exactly.
London.
No, I'm very happy with those kinds of and we, there's certain matches as well where you think certain strikers do well. I mean, Harry Kane against West Ham, I think that's fine. I think that's absolutely fine.
I said Notts Forest again.
Oh,
Nottingham Forest.
I'm blanking out now. It's like Vikings.
Can't do it.
Just go Forest. Just go Forest.
Yeah. Forest. Right. Last question, Joe, before we move off the best forwards here. If you own Kane or Haaland and you own Jesus, who is your third striker of choice at the moment?
Well, I would say it's Tony, because even though he's slightly lower down on this list, nevertheless, he's on this list as a best forward. He's had 5 shots inside the box, couple on target. He's had 2 goals. So he's that kind of guy. He doesn't need to shoot much. He's very accurate. But it's because of the fixtures, because Tony's fixtures, Brentford's fixtures weaken as Fulham's get better. But this is without the early wild cards. So there's the World Cup. We all get effectively a wild card from game week 16. So we're all going to use our wild cards before then. Or maybe now, maybe this week, maybe some people listening and watching are using it now. If they're going to use the wild card later, they don't need to worry about, I've got to get Tony in order to get that that price point there ready for Mitrovic, you can just either get him in now, or you just wild card him in. You can just wild card your whole structure around as well. So I wouldn't really worry about it too much now. You can wild card to get 3 strikers. But yeah, the Haaland is interesting because you can downgrade him and you can effectively upgrade your Archer or your Plange or whoever else you've got as your 4.5 striker. You can effectively get 2 quite decent strikers to go with Jesus. So very long answer there. It doesn't matter. There's loads of them. There's absolutely loads of them. They're all really good price at the moment. And I would not say that any were particularly wrong there. Just look at the fixtures, look at the form, basic stuff really. Personally, I want a premium striker because I don't want to ever lock myself out of Haaland or Kane.
My main takeaway from this is that big at the back lives to fight another day.
Yeah.
Callum Wilson is a wrong answer because it sounds like he's out for 4 weeks now, unfortunately.
Well, that's the standard answer to the question, Callum Wilson. The answer is he's 4 weeks away.
That might hurt Newcastle too because Chris Wood is not Callum Wilson.
No, they got Joao Pedro now, mate.
Has that gone through now?
Just got in from Watford, yeah.
Oh, okay. Is he actually playing up front? Maybe more off the flanks?
Well, he was playing up front for Watford, wasn't he?
But Watford.
Yeah. Seb, who's your answer? Who's your third striker? We'll have to be quite quick though.
So what? Haaland, Jesus.
Yeah.
Tony or Mitrovic, depending on fixtures.
Yeah, mine's Mitrovic. I think I like Mitrovic. Right, Seb. We've lasted. Is this the 4th one? It is. It's the 4th Scoutcast, and you finally get. Look, he's having a bit of a drink now. He's going right. Come on. Warm up the lips. So we are going to talk about Leeds. So your section is all about Leeds because they're actually quite fashionable at the moment, aren't they? There's a few of their players that are doing quite well. Obviously, Rodrigo, Harrison, Aronson, Meslier, we've already mentioned already as well. And we're bringing up on the screen here their average positions against Wolves and their average positions against Chelsea. Now, I don't know what you're going to talk about here because I'm actually quite interested in all of this as well because obviously, like we said, Leeds are quite fashionable. So talk us through their average positions, talk us through what you've seen and the players and the popular players and whether you think they're good ideas. And then after this, we're going to look at all their data as well.
That is far too much build-up. Sure. So on the screen now, we have for people watching, we have Leeds versus Wolves on the left and Leeds versus Chelsea, the most recent match, on the right. Green is the starters. Audio-wise as well, I will describe this. Just before we get going as well, though, I would love to just, a lot of my opinions come from other people in the Leeds community as well. There is a pod called All Stats, Aren't We? If anyone from that ends up listening here, I don't want them to not get credit because, of course, I will steal some of their beautiful analysis. But anyway, onto this. So we have probably what looks like a 4-2-3-1 at a bit of a stretch here. Looks a bit more like it in one of the matches than the other. Although before the season, I thought it would be a 4-2-2-2. It has lined up as a 4-2-3-1. But as you can see in both of these, it kind of melds. There is that 4-2-2-2 shape there as well because of the pressing, which we'll come on to in a moment. So the average positions here against Wolves, we have that back four, which lines up with the 2 centre-backs, as you would expect, and the 2 full-backs pushing on and staying wide. They are the widest players on the pitch. We then have Rocker and Adams, who are incredibly important to the way we play in the centre. One here, we have Rocker further forward than Adams in the Chelsea match. That's switched, and we'll talk about why that is in a moment. And then we have a bit of a front four. Now, this match, Patrick Bamford played, I believe, which meant Harrison was on the right, but Harrison on the left, and then Rodrigo behind Bamford for this. We also will cover Rodrigo in a moment. But that is almost a bit of a flat front four, wouldn't you say? And quite narrow. Both the wide players are coming inside the fullbacks. Marsh is a big fan of this narrow football. In fact, one of the ways to beat us is to look for space in those wide areas, and probably why Chelsea didn't quite beat us. So speaking of Chelsea, on the right-hand side, now you'll see our shape is a lot less defined here. It's a bit more of a mess. Now, the reason for that is that the thing with Leeds, and the most interesting thing, is that we really aren't an on-ball team anymore. Now, unlike Bielsa, where there was this very systematic, almost automatic way of playing on the ball, you knew where people were going to be, and dare I even say, looking at these average position maps might have even been more informative. We now create our chances almost without the ball, if that makes sense. What Marsh wants to do is get the ball into the final third of the pitch as quickly as possible, not necessarily, old-fashioned Stoke long ball, but get right forward and then either create something immediately in the dangerous parts or win those second balls, press players and win it back there. We saw Aronson closing down Mendy at the weekend, which obviously is going to be a rare occurrence, but that is probably Marsh's dream goal. Not from the wings, not a number 10, not a fullback crossing, closing a player down, nicking it and tapping it into an open net is exactly what we're playing for. And this is why I think it's going to make Leeds interesting from both a real life football point of view, because not many people will play like this in the Premier League. It's that Red Bull gegenpress type thing, but also in an FPL context. Now you can see here the shape against the Chelsea match, as I mentioned, is a bit more all over the place. The fullbacks kind of retain the same position, which is interesting. That's the only place our width comes from. The centre mids are swapped over, but that's because of the work we had to do against Chelsea. And then that front four, 3 of them are on top of each other. We have Dan James, Aronson, who was playing 10 in this match, and Rodrigo at 9, all basically in the same spot. And then Harrison, the only one holding some sort of width, but still quite narrow. Now, I know a lot of people are going to ask about Rodrigo, and popular opinion around Twitter and whatnot is that he's probably played himself into the team for the foreseeable. Now, that may well be true. Absolutely could be the case. I just want to provide the opposite point of view, which is, as we've covered, Marsh almost doesn't care what happens on the ball. He is all about pressing, and more pressing. And even in the Chelsea match where we had like a mid block, not necessarily a high block, it was about turning Chelsea around in possession and then pressing them high on the back line, which is where 2 of our goals came from, and 1 came from a set piece, which is something Marsh is hot on as well. So worth keeping an eye on that, and those are on the table in a moment. But I think Rodrigo, played great for FPL, played great on the ball or whatever. But the only reason he works in the team at the moment is at 9, his pressing is okay, because the rest of the team can compensate. Aronson can do a lot of the work from number 10, and the system can hold out. When Bamford comes back, I do believe he will be first choice, whether it's this weekend or in a couple of weekends. And then at 10, when everyone's fit, when Sinistera, who presumably will start in the Cup, gets a chance to play on the right wing with Harrison on the left, I think Rodrigo's place could be at threat. And I think that moves us nicely on to the lineup, if you have that, or did you want me to talk through that? Sorry.
No, yeah. So it's the players next. So it's the little
apologies,
table.
That's my mistake.
That's right.
So I will just bring it up for myself, so I remember that one. So I did just a little predicted lineup. Of course, there may be changes here, but Melia in goal, of course. Christensen, right back. Firpo or Strauch. Strauch's there while Firpo's injured, left back. First choice is probably Cooper and Llorente, but Cox in there at the moment. I don't think we really mind for FPL those players, though, so let's not worry about it too much. Rocker and Adams are important to the team in the DM positions. Adams doing that almost, he's been compared to Kante, but obviously not as good. Yeah. Although Kante and Kovacic is probably what Chelsea were missing at the weekend. If they'd managed to turn it over in the middle and actually hit the wide areas quickly, they could have beaten us. They were quite ponderous. There was a lot of times when Adams was able to get over and cover, say, Christensen in the wide areas, when other teams will isolate them one-on-one. I fully expect Brighton to do this and beat us, because Potter is an extremely smart manager. If you switch the ball, you saw how narrow we were, you can catch us one-on-one and score goals. The front 4 then, first choice here, would be Sinistera right, Harrison left, Aronson at 10, and then Bamford up front. Rodrigo does provide the backup for the 9 and the 10, and there's also Dan James who will play off the right. But I think if Marsh could pick his team at the beginning of the season, it would be Bamford, not Rodrigo. It's only been Rodrigo because of injuries. And now, worth repeating, he could play his way in, but we're all focused on goals and assists. Marsh is going to be looking at that pressing, and Rodrigo has to work for that for our team to work. So that brings us nicely onto this table. I've spoken loads. So, Joe, why don't you just run us through this table, and then I'll add a little bit as well, if that's all right with you?
I mean, this just highlights what we've been seeing already and what you've explained there with expected goal involvement per 90. We know that Rodrigo has got 4 goals, and we know he's got 35 points, FPL points. And his expected goal involvement is obviously getting on for nearly a goal a game. But as you pointed out there, and I mentioned earlier, there are question marks about where he'll play. Will he continue getting a run in the team? And also we've got I know it's a different manager, but we have the longer data with him in the Premier League. And it was 2,200 minutes or so, 6 goals, 4 assists. Okay, but it's not like rip your team up wildcard for because his price is going up type thing. Aronson is catching the eye. He's obviously looking good as well in it. He's a great asset on the pitch. When you watch the highlights, when you watch the match, you're going, wow, this guy's great. He's only 5.5, so he interests me. And to be honest, because Leeds and Brighton are playing each other and their players are quite similarly priced, and statistically quite similarly likely to either get you a goal and assist or not, or a clean sheet or not. I feel they're quite similar at the moment. Obviously, different types of team play, but in FPL terms, these are the types of teams you're competing against. They're in form, and they've got good fixtures, and they're very similarly priced. For me, Rodrigo is obviously someone to consider, but I'm probably not going to get him in. Aronson, someone to consider. I might be more likely to get him in. He's had 6 corners. It's Harrison with 7 corners. So I'm going down to real basics here. Who's taking corners? Who's on penalties? That kind of thing. That's why 5 million McAllister at Brighton on penalties, trying to get in the Argentina squad for the World Cup, trying to get into the team there for the World Cup. These are the kinds of players that interest me. So at the moment, the likes of Trossard, Gross, and this is to pure Brighton bias, my team players are similarly priced and very similar. So I'm just going to err on them. But if you're a Leeds fan, I can see why you would get these players in. But I think there's a lot of choice here, and I don't think Rodrigo is the messiah that everyone thinks he is.
Yeah, so I think the short term, even a couple of weeks, maybe if we're wildcarding soon, Rodrigo is probably worth a gamble. But hey, would have been a better gamble in game week 1, right? Long term, if we want Leeds players, you're either going to have time to work out if Rodrigo is going to find a space in this team, or I think Aronson is safe. Yeah. He is going to play 10. If he doesn't play 10, he'll play on the right. And he's on set pieces from one side of the pitch, as we can see there, Harrison on the other share. And Marsh will focus on scoring from set pieces. It's those set pieces and the pressing that he wants the goals from. We've already seen us get, I think, 2 from set pieces so far this season, which is probably about the same number we got under Bielsa, who hated set pieces in his entire career. And then the only other takeaway I would say is when people are playing against Leeds, I think we're still to learn here because we've only played 3 matches, but we actually could be all right against some of the bigger sides, like a Chelsea. Obviously, Chelsea were poor, but if we're going to press, if we're going to put people under pressure and really get at them, that's where we're going to have our chances from, maybe a Newcastle against City. Where that doesn't necessarily work is a team that are very happy to sit back and go straight over the top of us, because then our team will be caught out of position. There won't be those offsides against Sterling to play for. There will just be space behind us, and especially out wide. And I think Brighton this weekend will be really interesting, because if there's any manager who can work out Marsh in 3 matches, I mean, he got Ten Hag in 1 match, didn't he? So I think whatever Brighton do is probably going to be the blueprint for playing us this year.
This is why I was making that point about making moves based on points and not prices. If you're getting Rodrigo in before he plays Brighton, that's not a great time to get him in. A better time is to get him in after he's played Brighton. But of course, you will have to look at those price rises. So if you're a price rise kind of person, you won't be able to stomach that. But if you can hold your nerve and you want to get a player in because he's got a good run of fixtures, but Brighton is not that. So on the fixture ticker, I think it's the same colour, but it's not. So the last 3 fixtures have been 2-0 to Brighton, 0-0, 1-1, I think, and it stretches back. It stretches back like that. This is not the match. This is why I'm actually put off getting a Brighton midfielder this week, because I would be getting them in for another. I just don't think it's the right time to get them in. I might just save the transfer and just get them in after this match. I just don't think I'm going to get too many returns from this. I think Meslier and Sanchez could get some good returns.
I suppose, yeah, I know what you mean in terms of you've got to look for points, not for prices. I suppose you're buying Rodrigo now, and he could be 6.5 by the time you want to buy him again. But the other caveat to that is, if you think he's good value, he's going to be good value at 6.5, let alone 6.3. But Seb, before we move off this Leeds bit, it's 2 big questions I want to ask you, and I think it's what most people want to know. The biggest question is, if you have a route to getting Rodrigo and you had no other issues in your team, would you take that chance on Rodrigo? Do you think that he's played his way into that team enough for you to take a chance and get 3, 4, 5 weeks out of him, and he's going to carry on the way he is?
My honest answer is no, but I will acknowledge that by saying I'm a pessimistic Leeds fan, and obviously I'm looking at maybe more football than FPL here, because you said 3 to 5 weeks. I don't think he's got that long.
If you think about wildcarding, I'm thinking,
yeah. I mean, Bamford's fit. We've got a midweek match this week. I think it's tomorrow night. Where I don't know if Bamford will play. Actually, it might be Gelhardt and Greenwood. Rodrigo probably gets this weekend, and then I think we see. So maybe you wait until after the Brighton match, like Joe is suggesting, to make that call. Honestly, what I kind of expect to happen is me to say, no, don't get him all season. because, I'll be looking at it from a sort of tactical analysis point of view for Leeds. Rodrigo will keep playing and I'll be wonderfully wrong. That's kind of what I expect to happen. But
Okay.
I'm trying to be as honest as I can from my point of view as a Leeds fan.
So if you had 6 million to spend and you couldn't get to Rodrigo and you wanted Leeds coverage for this lovely fixture run they have, whether it's this week or next week, would you be getting Harrison or Aaronson? Because I was all over Aaronson. I really liked Aaronson. But you look at it, I know it's not all about the points, but Harrison has 24 points to Aaronson's 11. And their minutes per XGI and XGI aren't that different. Harrison's 0.41, Aaronson's 0.45, which is XGI per 90, which is nothing over 3 games, really. But Harrison is obviously getting the outcomes at the moment, isn't he? So who would your pick be? Bearing in mind Harrison's 6 million, Aaronson's 5.5.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I try not to judge too much on outcome, so I would call those relatively even. I think the takeaway from when we were looking at Leeds tactics a moment ago is it's maybe harder than other teams to nail down long-term where the points are going to come from, because it's not like there's an attacking structure where you go, oh, it's all coming from Trent on the right or something like that. If we're trying to create these chances from winning the ball off the opposition in dangerous areas, that could almost be anyone in the team, apart from Rodrigo, apparently. And Aaronson is a massive part of that, which is why I think, for me, he's always going to be involved in that high, dangerous end of the pitch. Right. Even if when we have possession, he isn't necessarily the most dangerous, he should always be there or thereabouts. So I may just punt for Aaronson. But honestly, it could just be a bit of, hit and hope here, especially if Bamford takes Rodrigo's place.
No, I like that. I like that.
Hey, maybe Bamford. If Bamford does come back in, we've not mentioned him. He probably is the one. If he gets his place back, penalties, the key striker will play that 9 role in the way that we want him to play it.
Just going to in the best forwards table that we had, Bamford just below Tony on the limited minutes he's had so far.
Yeah.
But last season he didn't figure much because he was injured. But the season before he was an absolute monster of the stats and obviously scoring the goals. So yeah, Bamford is someone we should all have our eye on if we think he's going to be fit. But so far it's been really bad. You've been Callum Wilson levels of unfit.
Yeah. Last question then, Seb, and I'm going to chuck in an extra one just because I can. If you did have 6.5 million to spend, would you swerve Rodrigo and go for Aaronson instead, saving yourself 0.8 million? Or would you just ride the hot hand and go with Rodrigo?
Just between those two, I might stick to my guns and go Aaronson. Ooh. But maybe at that point I'm looking elsewhere. 6.5 million. I'm assuming I've got Martinelli. Maybe I'm trying to spend my funds elsewhere. I've got big at the back in my own team. I don't have this slot available to me.
Nice. I like it. I like the fact you weren't sitting on the fence there, Seb. Right. Speaking of sitting on the fence, this is going to make you feel uncomfortable. Our community team. Because our community team is now below Joe. What's happened?
Can you imagine it? Can you imagine how low it is?
Right, Seb, can you just tell me where the community team is in our league at the moment so I can put that in the chat while you're explaining the moves we've made and all that kind of stuff? Where is it?
So in the Scoutcast Community League, which will have a code in the chat or description somewhere, we are 265th. And I'm not actually sure how many that's out of, but it's probably not that many because we're 1.6 million. Joe's 1.3 million. So frankly, the only target at the moment is to top or Mr. I can no longer finish in the 100k. That's the only target.
Mr. The community team 101k, I think.
101k. Sorry, my friend.
I'm still Mr. Top 101k. You can't take that from me.
So in the chat, make sure you tell us, by the way, if you're higher than 265th in the league. I am 69th. Oi, oi.
Hey.
Nice,
so yeah, we did mention. I don't know if Joe ever replied to this. I might be throwing him under the bus, but I'll cover you if we. If you say no to this, but we did say as well, if either any of us lose to the Scoutcast community team, we'll donate to charity of the community's choice. So we're currently all escaping that at the moment, but I'm sure it's possible. I'm sure we can vote ourselves into a charitable donation. Speaking of voting, we put the transfers to a vote this week. We had 2 free transfers and a little bit of money in the bank, I think. We did Bailey to Gross and a Robertson to Walker, and we netted ourselves a single point of gain, which is beautiful. Well done, all. Well done.
You called that a massive success in your tweet.
It's a massive win, massive dub, because we've also got like 1.2 million in the bank. Also, my bad, I did also, because of the way we do the vote, and I'll try and do better this week. At one point, I think I put one of the options was Bailey to Dewsbury Hall, which we could no longer afford because Bailey had dropped in price because it obviously went overnight. So I will keep an eye on that. That was my bad, but I'm assuming we wouldn't have made that move anyway.
Lovely. So, yeah, it wasn't a good week, was it? But looking forward, I mean, let us know in the chat what you think we should be doing with this. I will again put the league code in the description. I put it in there every week, and people are still saying they can't find it, but it's in the description every week. But yeah, I mean, looking at this team, Joe's going to love me, but obviously that keeper's kind of sticking out there a little bit, isn't he? And Saka still, you know.
Yeah, how much is in the bank with this one?
1 point. Let me check for you. 1.2 million.
Yeah,
1.2 million. One free transfer.
Upgrade Ward. Come on.
No, upgrade Everson.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Ward on the bench. Everson to.
That's why he's the top 100k manager, Andy.
To Sanchez, 101k. To Sanchez or Henderson if you want to be reckless, but I would say Sanchez. I think
so. I did take some nominations before we came live tonight, and we have a lot of Everson to Sanchez, like you suggest. Tony D, who's in the chat with us, Peppo, FPL, hey, James, FPL Bullseye, and so on. All say Everson to Sanchez. Maybe a Pope in there once or twice as well. We did get Glass Onion did say, how about an exciting Haaland to Kane captain, which is very on point with what we were discussing earlier. And there was from Razor one suggestion of Gross to Rodrigo. We just brought in Gross. Rodrigo's on fire, so a bit of a form pick there. We obviously have 3, I guess, nominated transfers to put in the vote there. Would you like me to add a role, or would you like me to add one of your selection?
Well, I would actually like to discuss what we're going to do in terms of Everson is about to drop to 3.9. Now, do we ignore that?
Yes, because you've got over $1 million in the bank. Stop being a...
No.
As I used to say in the 60s, a breadhead.
There is no point losing that 0.1. If that is... Okay,
people in the chat might
Andy,
say,
can we do polls in this chat?
Well, the other thing we could do is just do a quick poll. Like, you could literally make it as soon as we finish and just run it for an hour or something like that and just see what people say. Because then at least we're still sending the poll out.
Yeah, I'll do that.
I would feel bad if we didn't send the poll out, but obviously we know Everson's going down. That's the move we want to make, and it just seems silly to waste 0.1.
So Joe, in the interest of a democracy, which is what this is all about, Joe, you're against doing that.
Yeah, because what happens when Graham Potter says, "Oh, Sanchez got injured in training"?
Yep. We play war.
Andy deciding vote.
Yeah. No. So do that. So on the poll.
It's just deciding whether we do the poll tonight.
No.
Yeah. So do the poll tonight. Do the poll tonight, but have an option on there saying wait, and if wait wins, then we do it later on.
Yeah. I will do that after we finish.
I think that makes sense.
Awesome.
I don't think Joe's going to be happy with the result though.
No, because everyone's impatient. This is why they think, "Oh, I'm going to buy Rodrigo because he stepped on the pitch," and they're not stopping to think about these
Joe,
things.
you just want the team to finish below you. Stop sabotaging.
He does. Right, lovely stuff. On to bus teams now. Then, so my bus team is looking like this at the moment. So I got Ward in goal. I've got Trent, Cancelo, James, Saliba, and Robertson at the back. Saliba. I've got Salah captain, Martinelli and Kulusevski in the middle, and then I've got Haaland and Jesus up top. I've got De Silva, Andreas Pereira, and Archer on the bench with Everson on the bench as well. Apart from my goalkeeper, absolutely ecstatic for my team this week. All at home, absolutely lovely. I'm rolling the transfer. I've got no intention of using a transfer because I can't upgrade Everson or Ward anyway because I've got nothing in the bank. But I'm going to be rolling into next week. I mean, I know there's a lot of panic in the community at the moment. But you just look at these fixtures, and I can't look beyond them. Like, there's going to be weeks where the big four kind of don't do what you're expecting them to do. But that's not going to continue. The only thing that worries me a little bit is Liverpool's defence. Having double Liverpool defence there. But I'm not going to get rid of Robertson before Bournemouth at home. So I am absolutely in love with my team for next week. It's just Ward in goal. I'm not expecting anything. If he gets 1 point, then I'll be happy. So, I'm very happy with this. Like I said, rolling. And then the week after, very early thoughts, I'm thinking about upgrading Everson to Meslier or Pope or someone like that, and then downgrading Kulusevski to Zaha is my very early idea, or Robertson to somebody lower. But I'll see. I'll see how it goes. But that's my very early thoughts. But the goalkeeper will be gone. I will not be having to play Ward every week in 2 weeks' time, hopefully. I'm quite happy with that, to be perfectly honest. I think it's a good team, and I'm going to move on from it before. Have you got
any money in the bank?
No. What?
Have you got any money in the bank?
0.
Even though you got De Silva in, you must be dripping in money from your De Silva.
No. This isn't fluid money at the moment. I'm afraid it's all
Fake
caught up
money.
in property. Yeah.
Okay.
Seb,
Fluid money.
So you can't get you've got to play Ward against James.
Yeah.
So 0-0.
Fine, mate. Chelsea haven't scored in an entire match.
Yeah.
Exactly.
James
Seb,
never scores.
Now, no matter how many times we tell Seb he has to send his team in a certain format, he still doesn't do it. So he's got a very interesting little format here. But Seb, talk us through your team.
That look. I don't know, mate. I can't read it. It's in a weird format.
No, I know you can't.
It's tiny lettering.
So my team, where is it? My team is no changes yet from last week. So Sanchez, Trent, Cancelo, Walker, James, Gabriel, Salah captain at the moment. I think that'll stay. Luis Diaz, Martinelli, Haaland vice, Jesus up front, and then the bench of people that'll never see the pitch. I have 2 free transfers and 1 million in the bank and 0 ideas. I won't actually do this, but it's at the point where I wondered to myself.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, if Trent does drop this week, could I just use 2 transfers to get rid of him and bring him back in and bank 0.1? Now, obviously the answer is no.
Joe
Obviously it's
you.
no. But I don't know what else to do with my transfer. Like I might do Haaland to Kane just cause.
Or De Silva. Could sell De Silva.
I need De Silva to a 4. So
money.
all the 4.4s at the moment, I think Gilmore's one at Chelsea and another one plays for a big team. So I don't want to end up having like a third Chelsea player on the bench that I can't use. But if we get another 4.4, I'd probably do De Silva to a 4.4 and put some money in the bank.
Yeah,
It'll be 2 weeks in a row that I've built money in my bank.
Weird. I'd just say burn the transfer. Why?
Yeah, I mean,
if you got 1 million, you can't even. Yeah. No, can't even upgrade Archer or do anything with him.
No. And
Archer's the one, I suppose, because Archer's going to be going on loan potentially, isn't he?
Yeah, just do another 4.5. Fine.
If you, and also Andres Pereira's really good, 4.5. De Silva will do. There's not much you can do. I guess because of midweek with Man City, you might get some inkling that say Walker won't play.
Chat tells me there are new 4.4s from last night, so that's what I might be doing.
Right, okay.
They're also saying first world problems in there as well.
Yeah,
look at me, 1 million in the bank, 2 free transfers. What do I do?
I can't think what you would do.
Maybe I should wildcard it like some people.
That is the power move. Wildcard now. Go on.
You should wildcard this. And just get that 0.1 on Trent.
Seb, I said this to you last week. You're in a great position here. You've got a good rank already. You've got 2 free transfers, 1 million in the bank. I think Joe could be there. I think you might end up burning this transfer, to be honest.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Also, it weirdly makes your overall rank better as well. Yeah. By the end of the season, the transfers made comes into. So by the end of the season, whatever points you're on, there'll be a number of other managers on those points. And one of the criteria for you to be higher than them in the overall rank is that. And it can be the difference. It could be the difference between top 100 and top 101k. You never know.
Can I just say that like the last 30 seconds have been lovely, but I am totally going to mess this up. Like we're talking about burning a transfer so that I might finish slightly higher than someone else because I would have done less transfers. This is definitely going very wrong, isn't it?
Or swap Archer to that Leeds guy. You don't play.
Greenwood.
Yeah, just do that. Just do that because he's Leeds.
So realistically,
down as well.
Realistically, well, there we go. Realistically, I'm going to get 0.1 from somewhere.
Yeah.
And then I'll have 2 again next week, which is probably lovely for the whole. And we will discuss this next week. We've lined it up. What happens when Europe comes in? What happens when we have like 2 matches a week for everyone basically until the World Cup? That is a good time to have 2 free transfers, I think.
Yeah, lovely stuff. And then moving on to Joe. So sorry, Joe, you've got to follow this, but Joe's team, can you talk us through? Oh, look at this. Look, Joe had a, can you please send us this team in a certain format? And he's done it. Well done, Joe.
Yeah. I've listened to myself. Unlike the great advice from earlier, do the opposite of what Joe says. Yeah. Seb has been following that. Excellent. And I haven't. I've just sent it in a really good format that looks great. So I've got Sanchez in goal, Cancelo, Gabriel, Alexander-Arnold, James and Cucurella taking on Leicester's lack of attacking threat, although Maddison no doubt score his customary free kick. I've got Mason Mount Salah as my captain against Bournemouth. For more about that, do have a look at the captaincy video or listen to the podcast. Martinelli, I've also got. I have Haaland up front and Jesus. Jesus, hate him. Unless I captain him. And on my bench, I've got Ward, obviously, because he's rubbish. I've got Bailey, brilliant that I kept him. Got my bench and assist last week. Andreas with his 8 points last week. So yeah, he's good. And Archer, well, there we go. I didn't even know what I've got. I think I've got 0.5 in the bank. So I was thinking of removing Mount for Brighton like last. I think I've got a theme here of the Scoutcast. Every week I'm gonna say I'm gonna get in a Brighton midfielder and never do. So last week I was gonna get in Gross and never did. This week I'm going to get in Trossard but never will. So the Brighton player we'll get in for Mount will be Trossard. With his one big chance so far, 4 chances created, 9 goal attempts as well. And Gross has created 7 chances with 4 goal attempts and cheaper. But I do like Trossard, even though he's 6.5. I'm not too worried about money at the moment. But having said all of that, I actually prefer Mount's fixture against Leicester to Trossard's against Leeds, even though he has, if Brighton are going to score, I think he can be involved. But the only thing I will make this move for with Mount is if I get an inkling, and we might get this from Chelsea fans from the manager as well in the press conferences. If Mount is going to be dropped for this fixture, he's going to be rotated, and in which case I will make that move, even though I don't think my alternatives would do well in this game week. It's just investing for the next few game weeks. So that's a move I'll make there. The other move I could do is Cucurella, who I've only just got in, to Perisic. So I could just do that. But
why would you get rid of Cucurella so quickly?
Why would I get rid of him? And why would I get Perisic in when Cucurella will definitely play in as a centre-back, admittedly, but he will definitely play as centre-back because Cavalli is out. And then Chilwell will probably play at left-back. And then meanwhile, Chilwell probably won't play midweek. Cucurella will go back to left-back. So, and I have bench players. So I'm not desperate for that Perisic move. I don't think he's going to get all of those games. I mean, he might do, but I'm not desperate for that.
I mean, for me, easy move, Mount to Rodrigo. Don't know why you haven't done it already. Price rises. Come on.
If I was a price rise kind of guy, I would.
Yeah, you've already missed one of them, I think.
Yeah, 2, I think, isn't it?
And I've got to live with that poverty.
Right. So, are you excited? I'm excited because we're moving on to community questions now, and I have something brand new on the screen. It's not going to be on here yet. It's not going to be on here yet, but what we're going to do, chuck your questions into the chat. And I have so this is an ever-evolving section of the Scoutcast now. We now have
that ever-evolving picture of Andy Robertson you always put on.
I know. We now have a 15-second timer. So this 15-second timer is going to come up right next to the person's face when they start talking. Now, once that 15-second timer has stopped, you have to stop talking. I will tell you to stop talking. Okay, if you don't want to use 15 seconds, that's absolutely fine. But you must stop talking after 15 seconds. And then I am going to tell you who wins the point as soon as both of you have stopped talking. Does that make sense? You're not going to talk at the same time, obviously.
We've got to convince you in 15 seconds, no more, no less.
Yes, indeed.
Exactly. I won't have even finished my introduction by then.
Last time you won by saying I'm going to win you a pint. So we'll see how we get on. So are you ready to start? Hopefully this means we're going to answer some more questions. That's what I want.
Andy, just before we go, we had a couple of the Super Chat ones earlier. Shall I pop those back in the chat for you?
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, we'll start with those, actually.
Yes. I took a screenshot, so I'll read them out to you.
Okay, good.
If that's all right.
Yeah, go on then.
Cool. So Dave asks, City have Palace on the 27th, Forest on the 31st, and Villa on the 3rd. Are we keeping Haaland?
There you go. So, Joe, are you ready? Your timer starts now. Go.
I'm seriously considering removing him for Kane, who I think is assured of starts, and we'll get similar amount of points.
Oh, 7 seconds, Joe. 7 seconds. Right. Okay, Seb, your 15 seconds starts now.
I am keeping him now, and then I will see what happens with future starts and move him to Kane if it looks like he's at risk.
Oh, 7 seconds as well. 15 is too long. I need to just do 10 seconds next time. Lovely stuff. I'm going to give Joe that point. Next question. What was your next super question?
1 second. Settings asks, is Martial a differential?
Oh, Joe, is Martial a differential? Your timer starts now.
He certainly is, but there are better ones. We've spoken about them throughout the show.
Who are they?
All of the players that we mentioned. Go back, listen to the show.
Not liking the sassiness.
I've only got 15
Seb,
seconds, mate.
You had loads left. Seb, your time starts now.
Depends what happens with Ronaldo. Obviously, there are other considerations with fixtures and rotation, but one of Rashford and Martial could be nice. And if Ronaldo leaves, Martial could be very nice.
Oh, I'm going to have to do 10 seconds next week. That's going to go to Seb because of Joe's sassiness. I
did say I would sabotage this.
Next one we've got is Miena says, would you get rid of a Leicester goalkeeper for a -4? Seb, your time starts now.
No, because you basically need your other goalkeeper to keep a clean sheet immediately, only to break even. The ceiling is not high enough. Wait a week.
Lovely. And Joe, would you sell a goalkeeper for a -4? Go.
Would I sell a goalkeeper? Yes. Would I sell Ward? No. For -4, no.
Not for a -4. So you wouldn't sell Everson for a -4 and keep Ward?
Sorry, how many seconds have I got left?
1 second, that's it. I'm going to give that one to Seb.
It's going well, Andy. Sounded like a good segment.
Historia Film says, what to do with Saka? I have Martinelli and Jesus. Joe, going to start with you. Timer starts now.
What was the question again?
What to do with Saka? I have Martinelli and Jesus.
Keep
him. And Seb, what would you do? Timer starts.
I would keep for now. The numbers are a little down, but we looked at them last week. It's not too discouraging. Also, let's assume their defense might have some issues with minutes going forward. So that's a nice triple up with nice fixtures. Hold on for now.
Lovely stuff. Seb. Soheeb says, do you have Robertson or Diaz as your third Liverpool player if you're on wildcard? Seb, I'll start with you. Go.
On wildcard Robertson, I would keep Diaz otherwise, but I think longer term Robertson minutes are more assured because Jota and Nunes will come back and affect Diaz, and you want your wildcard for the longer term.
And Joe, who would you have out of those two for your third Liverpool spot?
I wouldn't have a third Liverpool because their form's not great at the moment. I'd just go for Alexander-Arnold and Salah and leave it blank for whoever emerges.
Lovely. Joe finally answered one properly and he gets a point. Try and get a few more in.
I don't know how many seconds I've got left though, because obviously
you're fine. I'll just tell you when you haven't got any left. Magic Man
Brilliant.
Josh says, Gundogan, Joe, would you like Gundogan or not?
Yes, but it all depends on the minutes. But I do like him. I think 7.5 is great value for him and his goal threat.
Yeah, lovely stuff. And Seb, what do you think about Gundogan?
Yes, like him a lot, but it looks like Bernardo is staying, which is an issue, even though he played on the right. We saw Grealish not play at the weekend. City struggled to control a game, which is something Grealish brings by slowing it down. So Bernardo could play in the middle, which threatens Gundogan.
Lovely stuff. Seb wins that one. FPL The Wyvern says, do we pick KDB over Son for now? Seb, start with you. Go.
Yes, because your alternative to Son is Kane, who I think is a marginally better pick, at least for the price. And I guess De Bruyne has better minutes than Haaland just.
Yeah. And Joe, what about you? Go.
No, probably not.
No? You wouldn't go KDB over Son?
No, not at the moment.
No. I'm going to give that to Seb.
I'm loving this Joe just being like, I need a second. That's all I need. I see your game and I refuse.
We might have to pick a new guest next week.
New format, maybe.
Right, I'll tell you what, we'll finish it there. Right, Seb, well done. You win, my friend.
Oh, thank you, mate. The beer will be in the post.
Back to 2-2. Right, lovely stuff. I will go back to the beginning screen. Boom, boom, boom. Thank you very much for everybody in the chat for chucking in your questions as well. As you've seen as well, if you have any other questions, we're usually happy to answer them on our Twitter feeds and things like that as well. Joe, hope you enjoyed your evening with us, mate.
It was excellent, especially the last bit. It's a really good new format, which I think is going to really work, catching the imagination of everyone.
I think it works for people that want to make it work, Joe.
No, it does. It does. And yes, because obviously throughout life, when you ask questions, you've only got 15 seconds. That's just completely normal. That happens every day.
Yeah.
Mum, Dad, stop fighting.
Seb, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Well, thank you for having me. I'd love to ask a question if I may, which could end really badly for me.
You only got 15 seconds for an answer.
Yeah. A few weeks in a row, my section has kind of been a bit of a sort of tactical analysis, which is I might be terrible at, but obviously it's a bit more football based than FPL based. Leeds tonight obviously is something I know a bit about, so hopefully that was okay. But I'd love to hear any feedback on that. Is that useful to people? Is it a bit too football-y rather than FPL? Love to hear what people think.
Cool. Yeah, so lovely. So you can leave it in the comments of the YouTube as well. If you let Seb know what you think about the analysis bit as well, and make sure as well that you like the stream and you subscribe as well. We'd absolutely love that too. Right. Thank you very much for joining us again tonight, and we will see you next week. We hope your arrows are green for Game Week 4, and good luck. Bye bye.